Sorry, I just realized I wasn't recorded. So the Center for African Justice, Peace and Human Rights want to use this platform to provide a space for knowledge sharing and a discussion and tangible steps to overcome the difficulties that encountered. As the first session discussed the impact of migration and mental health, today we will focus on the obstacles that encountered in the host countries and in the host country, as we're specific on Netherlands at the moment, and rebuild their lives in the Netherlands. The overarching goals of this session is to offer a supporting space in which cross-cultural coaches, traders, and psychologists will guide newcomers in the integration process and offer ways to foster integration, support networking, social, economic, and cultural inclusion. I hope that through the webinar that discusses challenges of the cultural integration in the context of migration, migrants in the Netherlands will be better informed and equipped with the helpful tools and guidance. More importantly, I hope that the experts feel empowered to successfully navigate personnel and professional transitions and changes, and know where they can get information about where to turn to address their problems, to facilitate integration into the Dutch society, and how to find support in the Netherlands. Thank you again and welcome to today's session.
Thank you. I almost forgot to unmute myself there. Thank you so much, Azizat, for giving this welcoming statement and introducing us to today's webinar. We'll be ready to start now with our first speaker, Ms. Karen Gordon. She's a certified career coach, cross-cultural trainer, and leadership and team coach. She has performed integration coaching for clients from across the globe for more than 10 years now, and is a member of the European Mentoring and Coaching Council. She has firsthand experience of learning to adapt to diverse working environments and cultures, and she works with international and local clients from students to executive levels. Karen is also originally from Ireland and has lived in Australia, France, the UK, the US, and the Netherlands for over 20 years. And she will focus today on the topic of integrating into a new country and adapting to a new culture. Please welcome Ms. Karen Gordon. The floor is yours. You may start presenting as well. Share your screen with us. You're still muted as well, Karen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good start. That was a great start. I'd just like to thank the team at the Center for African Justice, Peace and Human Rights for inviting me to be here today. I'm very, very honoured to be here, and I really hope that I can share some of my knowledge with you and would really like to help you with any questions that you have. I have a few slides that I've put together, but you know, we don't have to stick to them. If you have questions for me, please ask, either unmute yourselves or ask in the chat, and I'd be very happy for you to interrupt and ask. So and remember, no question is silly. All questions are good. Chances are you asked me a question that someone else was curious about. So so I invite you to ask me questions today. Just to tell you, the slides are, you know, we're talking about culture, communication, which is very important. Some of my tips for you, and I've put some resources at the end of the slides that I think will be very helpful for you. So please do, you know, look at the slides when you're sent them after this workshop, because you will be sent them, okay? And if you want to link in with me, you're very welcome to. I'd invite you also, if you would like to link in with other people that are here today, put your LinkedIn in the chat, because, you know, we can all help each other along the road and along this journey. And you can always reach out to me if you have a short question, if you need further coaching. So please feel free to link in with me. Maybe there's someone in my network that can help you. So let's connect with each other and be here for each other. Okay. So what is culture? Culture has very many different layers, and I would just maybe ask you as participants to put in the chat, how would you define culture? But one word or 2 words or a few words? Thank you. People's way of life, art. Nice. Anybody else? Part of one's identity? Yeah. Identity, food, tradition. Yeah. All these things are connected to culture. Religion. Absolutely. Thank you. So I'm just giving you a definition from a business management book that the students at the University of Amsterdam use. And it is, you know, what you said, you know, it's different norms and values of a group and beliefs. You know, we all grow up in our culture through rituals, stories, and symbols. And so moving to another country, you know, there's a big change, there's a big shift, because there are different traditions, and people that are from that country have grown up with different stories and different norms and values sometimes. And these are things that we need to adjust to. I'd be really interested to know, what are your challenges integrating into a new country and adapting to a new culture? What would your biggest challenges be? Or maybe not you directly, but maybe you have friends who have challenges. You could either unmute or put in the chat. Or you can direct message me.
I think a big challenge is language in general.
Mm-hmm.
So if in the Netherlands, it's a bit easier because everyone speaks English, but if you go somewhere else, the language can be a big barrier to communicate with people and feel a sense of belonging.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to try and learn the language, you know. It's for wherever you go, it opens doors, you know. It's if you try and even learn a few words, the local people really value that, and they really can see that you want to try and integrate. And the good thing, as you said, is a lot of Dutch do speak English. The only problem is sometimes when, you know, even native English speakers think because the Dutch speak very, very good English, that they understand their culture. And then they forget that they still need to adapt to the culture here. And there can be a lot of miscommunications. So I think it's also important that even if you speak very, very good English, that, you know, if it's not the native language in the country, you know, there might be many miscommunications. And to really get integrated and to get to know people and to get to know their beliefs and their culture, it's a really, really good idea to learn the language. And food, Valerie mentioned food is difficult because that's something you miss from your own country when you move into a new country. You know, it's food is very comforting, and sometimes it's hard to find the ingredients of, you know, and of what you're used to cooking. Thankfully now, I've been here 22 years, there are a lot more shops where you can get a lot more diverse food, and there are a lot more websites where you can find out where you can get those food items. You can actually Google now pretty much anything. So that is helpful. And it really is important to try and sometimes make your own food that's, you know, from your own country or something similar, because it really will give you comfort, you know, living in a new place. But you do have to adapt as well and try new things. You know, and it's good to try and integrate. It took me years before I actually tried the raw herring here in the Netherlands. And I bravely tried it one time. My Dutch friend said, "Come on, you have to." And I was pleasantly surprised. I was like, why did I hold off for so long? But it really brought us together. It made a connection, and you can really connect with people over food as well. So somebody said that, I think food, I'm not sure, Valerie, did you mean communication and food was a challenge? And if so, maybe you can elaborate a bit more. And Huma said differing communication styles. Absolutely. You know, I come from Ireland, and in Ireland, we're very indirect in our communication style. It's high context. And so when we're talking, we never really say what we mean. But everyone interprets each other and can guess what each other means. I don't know if that is ringing any bells with anyone here from other cultures. And then coming to the Netherlands for me was a huge culture shock, because everyone is so direct. But I actually love it. I've been here 22 years and I plan on staying here. I love the directness, because I always know where I stand. I know that people are saying what they mean, and there's less of a chance of miscommunication. So I think it's really, really great, but it can take some getting used to. And sometimes when people come here and they're integrating, they think, oh, the Dutch are a bit rude, but they don't understand that just because being so direct wouldn't be the norm in their country, it doesn't mean they're rude. It's just a different culture. And actually it can be very refreshing. And when you're new in a country, it's great that they're direct, because it helps you to understand society more and navigate the new culture. When I came here and I was working, I used to say sorry a lot. I would say sorry for everything. If someone bumped into me, I'd say sorry. You know, even if it was their fault, it was our culture. We would always just apologize all the time. And one of my Dutch colleagues said to me, "Karen, why are you always saying you're sorry? We don't respect you as much when you do that. You're kind of belittling yourself." And I realized how it looked in their eyes. And my first thought was, ooh, that was very direct, you know, because I wasn't used to that directness. And my second thought was, oh, I'm so delighted that this person had the courage to actually tell me that. It wasn't probably courage, it was just the norm that they would be honest with me here. But in my country, people wouldn't have told me that, and they would have let me go on, you know, looking like I had no confidence because I was always apologizing. So I really valued that honesty and learned that, you know, the Dutch in their communication, they really value you being genuine and honest. And by me saying sorry all the time, well, I didn't really mean it. It was just a habit. It's just a word that, you know, we'd kind of throw around. And I realized that, you know, I should only say sorry when I mean it and not all the time. And I also learned coming here that if I played things down, you know, if I said, oh, I'm not very good at that, and then I ended up being better at it, and my Dutch colleagues would say, but why did you say you were not very good at it when you're great at it? And in my culture, we're just used to playing things down. And I realized, hold on a minute, you know, here, if I say that, people will take me at face value. They will expect me to be direct and honest. And so I need to think about my communication. I need to think about the things that I say, and understand more, you know, what my Dutch colleagues need to hear from me. And it was a really big learning experience. And I also noticed that, you know, here as well, that, you know, from doing my integration coaching, that, you know, with communication in some cultures, people, there isn't much distance when they're talking, you know, that people stand very close together, and they're used to that in certain cultures in certain countries. But in the Netherlands, people like their space. And I really noticed that was something that was also very different here. And just learning and being curious and observing. I learned a lot. Actually, it was great to have Dutch colleagues to learn from in the beginning, and I was very grateful for them. But just going to look at the chat, or the weather. Someone has said the weather is very challenging. Well, and we've also got another Irish person who understands. So the weather is, I think it's great fun, because we never really know, you know, we can have 4 seasons in one day, but I can understand that if you come from a country where there's a lot more sun, that that can be very hard in the winter. If you go to work or to your studies in the morning in the dark, come home in the dark, that's pretty tough. And if you're trying to integrate and you're trying to be positive, it can be a bit of a downer. But I always try and look at the positive side. And what I love about the winter here is, if you go to a restaurant, there are candles everywhere, and people light candles and hang up lots of lights around their apartments, and you can actually make things very cozy. So it's about trying to always, you know, take the tough times and turn them into something happy or positive. So does anybody have any experiences? We've seen some people say different communication styles, language, intercultural communication, whether, is there anything else you'd like to comment on that? Is there any particular experience that you've had that's been difficult? If you want to share and unmute, or in the chat, you're welcome to. Give you a minute. And Claudia said about customs. Customs can be a challenge. Of course, you know, when you go into a new working environment, there's a custom that on your birthday, you're meant to bring in a cake or something for your work colleagues. And when I first came here, I thought, well, that's different. I have to save up for my birthday because I have to buy everyone else something. And it was really different, but I really embraced it and enjoyed it. And of course, in different working environments, sometimes if they have a big, you know, office, they won't want people bringing in cake all the time. Maybe they agree to do things a little bit differently. But I love the fact that, you know, sometimes people from other countries, when they're working here, they try to hide the fact that it's their birthday, but HR always know, and you'll come in on your birthday and your desk will be all decorated. So you can't get away with it. You've got to play the game. And also your Dutch colleagues can be very disappointed if you don't play the game. So, because they really love that. Dutch people love to celebrate. And I think it's wonderful. So, so yes, being curious when you're integrating is very, very important, because there are so many different customs and traditions. There's a great website or blog that I've put at the end of the slides, stuff Dutch people like. I don't know if any of you've read it, but I know that, you know, even some of my Dutch friends have read it and said, "Are we really like that?" You know, they find it really funny and interesting. It's written with humor, but it's really it really does discuss different customs and traditions, and it does help to know about them, because it of course does help you integrate better. So let's see if anyone else has written anything else. Nothing else for now. Okay, so I'll move on to the next slide. So of course, culture comes in different layers. You've got, you know, the universal values and behaviors that are shared by all groups. And then you have the behaviors and values that are shared by people within your group. And then you've got personal values and behaviors. So it's, you know, when we're looking at cultural integration, there are lots of different layers to it. There can be norms and values and beliefs that your family had that are different to people around you. There can be traditions that you have in your family that maybe your neighbors don't have. So each one of us is unique, and we do have some shared beliefs and values with other groups. And I think that when you integrate into a new country, it can be very helpful to seek out some of those people that have shared beliefs and values, because even though you might be looking for a new experience and a new adventure, it can be very comforting to sometimes you know, hang out with the people that have the same beliefs and values as you, maybe cook some food together and laugh together. I did find when I came here that I wasn't laughing enough for ages. I became very serious, and I realized it was because I was always trying to speak Dutch, and I really couldn't, you know, make a joke in Dutch. That was difficult. And also the Dutch humor was different. I was still trying to figure it out. So one time I went back to Ireland, and I came back here, and I made a deal with myself, and I said, right, Karen, you don't laugh anymore, and this is ridiculous. So from now on, I'm going to practice my Dutch when I want to do something, a transaction or something important. But when I want to laugh with a Dutch person, I'm just going to say it in English and see what happens and experiment. And that made me so much happier with my integration, because I found that I was able to be a little bit more myself. And I think that's really important. Does anyone here have any tips for the others in the group about, you know, what they might have done to integrate here, when they came here, something that they did, or something that they saw another person that was integrating here do that they thought was very helpful?
So I think being curious is a really good way to connect. People love to give advice. Don't be afraid to ask for help. The Dutch are very accommodating, very happy to give advice and opinions, very honest. So I think just to get curious and reach out to those who are in the know helps build those connections.
Absolutely. And Dutch people love that. Thank you, Huma, because Dutch people love to be asked questions. They don't always think about telling you. They don't really want to interfere and start telling you lots of information, but they absolutely don't mind you asking them questions. And, you know, the Dutch are very good at networking and asking each other questions when they want to know information. That doesn't come naturally to all the cultures. You know, in my culture, people will give you a lot of information. If they're not giving you information, you might be reluctant to ask the questions because you feel it's bothering them. So that's a very good point, Huma. Being curious and asking questions in the Netherlands opens lots of doors, but you have to ask the right question to get the right answer, because sometimes they don't understand exactly what your question is, and they may not give you the right answer. They might just shut it down. But if you think of another way of asking, a more specific way, then sometimes you get a better answer. So that's also really important. And I see that Jessica said about when she moved to Germany and she managed to make a joke in German, they were very proud of themselves. Yeah, I think that I think that it's so lovely to be able to laugh and joke in your new country. It really is. It's really important, and when you can do that with the locals, it's even better. But in the meantime, before you can do that with the locals, find other people that you can do that with, because it gets us over all challenges. It's important to laugh. Yeah.
I also wanted to say that I found with sometimes when you try to speak Dutch and you don't really quite know how to, or you're not very good at it, people try to be very accommodating and to switch into English. But if you're insisting, or if you're telling them that you actually want to learn the language, then they usually help out. Then they will be like, okay, I'll try to slow my Dutch down so I can help you. Or you can ask them for specific words that you're struggling with, which I was really afraid of doing in the beginning because I was just ashamed that like my Dutch wasn't good enough. So I just like, okay, let me just give up. And then at some point I kind of kept trying in certain instances when I felt comfortable with, and I actually did find that they were accommodating and they didn't mean that in a hurtful way at all.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And I think that your words are great, Colleen, because they're encouraging us to experiment and just try and just keep trying to speak it. And, you know, sometimes you'll say a Dutch sentence that you think was very easy to understand, and the Dutch person will look at you like you have 10 heads and you feel really stupid. And you're like, but what did I say wrong? Or you'll say something in perfect Dutch and they'll answer you in English. And it's so disappointing because you thought that you were doing so well. But I learned to be very tenacious and say, you know, jij spreekt heel goed Engels, ik moet oefenen. So I gave them a compliment. I said, you speak very good English and Dutch, but I need to practice. And I always found that that people are very accommodating, as you said, and then they'll let you try, and they love to practice their English. But of course, you know, living here, it's really important for us to practice our Dutch. And it is difficult if they know you speak English, because they'll speak to you in English, and we need to be very tenacious. If we really want to speak the language, we have to keep trying. And it takes a lot of courage and a lot of guts and people looking at you strangely, but after a while you just get used to it. And I also used to feel a lot of shame when I was first here that I was living in, you know, another country and I couldn't speak the language. And Dutch is not an easy language. I didn't find it easy to learn. And I had learned other languages much faster. So, but I just thought, yeah, everyone I spoke to that spoke Dutch well, that were foreign, they said they just had to be really tenacious all the time and just keep practicing and keep insisting on speaking Dutch. So, so any of you who are here in the group that, you know, really want to learn it, just keep trying. And you'll get there. And also, if you look at, you know, meetup.com, or there used to be, I'm sure it's still there on Facebook, International Cafe, where you can go and speak different languages with people. You can speak Dutch, you know, just find people you can practice with. Sometimes you might find a Dutch person that would be happy to converse with you, and then maybe would like you to teach them some of your language. So, you know, you can always do a swap, but it does take a bit of tenacity and a bit of effort, but it's really worth it, because Dutch people are so thrilled when people learn their language. And, you know, in the world of work, in study, and you will go further if you're living here and you speak the language, because you'll understand what people are saying. And it definitely will help you. And also, if you want to do volunteer work with meaning, often, you know, with the most meaningful volunteer work, often you need to speak the language, or some of the language, or understand it. So it also is very helpful for that too. Okay, so really I just wanted to say about, you know, you've also got work culture. And, you know, when you go into an organization. You've also got a culture of a university. But wherever you go, there will be a culture surrounding that organization, and it takes time to get used to that. And sometimes we're not very patient. With this world of technology, we're all our focus is not as good as it used to be, and we're much more impatient. But it does take a bit of patience to really understand what the culture norms are in that organization and how to navigate it. And do ask lots of questions if you need to, because, find a mentor, find a natural networker. Natural networkers are great because they always want to help you, introduce you to the right people, and they never want anything in return. They just love doing it. It's what they love doing. And, going out and being visible, going and meeting people at meetups, looking for associations and societies where you have things in common with other people, things you're curious about, that can really, really help you in your integration journey as well. So some of the big tips I would say is, when you're building a global mindset and you want to really integrate into a new country, take a step back and observe and listen and reflect, and keep doing that. And ask curious questions, and don't be shy. Some of you here today might be introverts, and it takes a lot to ask questions, but don't be shy too, because you're in the right country to do that. This is the country where you should ask people questions, and they will be very helpful and give you good answers. Mostly, obviously, there are always exceptions. And keep researching. There's so many online resources now, and of course you can play with ChatGPT as well, and use AI. It's not so great on cultural things yet, but it'll get better and better. It's still learning, but there are loads of sites like Expatica, I Am Expat, in Amsterdam. Even if you're not in Amsterdam, it still has lots of resources. So keep looking for how you can read on, and brilliant resources are Geert Frans Trompenaars, and Erin Meyer. Now I've put all their names and their contact links at the end of the slides, and they've all written a lot about culture. Two of them are Dutch, and they've done a lot of research. So if you're really interested in communication and how we perceive things and how to culturally integrate, you can learn a lot from them. And Erin Meyer is American. She's based in France, and she's written a book called The Culture Map, and you can actually go into her website and you can buy a culture map. Say you're going into an international organization or international studies, or any environment that's international, and you want to know what's the best way to communicate with all these different cultures. You can actually have a look at what the norms are. I mean, obviously, as I said before, there are lots of differences. Culture is not universal, but they give you an idea of how people communicate from those countries, and you can compare them and look at them, and it can help you along your journey. So those resources are in the end of the slides. And I'd ask you to look at this picture. There's a reason for me. Maybe you've seen it already. I'd like you to put in the chat, what do you see when you look at this picture? Okay, so we've got a woman and a lady, and I'd like to know, okay, do you see a young woman or an old woman? Thanks for your honesty, Huma. Okay. So some people see, but one person says they've seen a young woman and an old woman. Actually, there's a young and an old woman there. So some people have seen the old woman, some people have seen the young woman. Can you see it now? You have to really look at it closely. And the point of bringing this into this here is to show you that not everybody has a different perspective, and not everyone sees the same things. And there is, in fact, a young woman and an old woman here. If you can't see it now, when you get the slides, you can have a closer look and torture yourself. But it's really important to remember that we're all unique and we all have our own perspectives. And so it's good to sometimes ask questions and get evidence for what are our assumptions correct, or what we're seeing, is it really the way it is, or are we just comparing a situation to our own culture and our own values and norms, which don't apply here. So it's really important to remember that, and to always go on being curious. I've put something in here about the diverse communication styles, and some people, one big thing for a lot of people from other cultures is that they're not so, in their cultures, it's not so time sensitive. So here in the Netherlands, if you're late for an official appointment, it's not good. It's considered rude. You know, so it's important to be on time. The Dutch people value that. In Ireland, it's normal to be 20 minutes late. That's, if you're meeting someone, it's not considered rude. It's just the norm. So I really had to adjust when I came here, and I've been working with a leadership team in the south of India, and then I had to adjust to them, because their idea of time, they live more with flexible time and think timelines change all the time, and I had to be flexible to go along with that. So there's a lot of differences also with feedback. My gosh, that's where a lot of miscommunications can come about in across cultures, where you know, somebody thinks that they've been told that they've done a really great job, and it turns out that that's not what the person said at all, and so they go away feeling very happy. You know, if a British person, there's a story of a British person says to a Dutch person, you know, oh, that's not bad. The Dutch person goes away thinking it was brilliant, and but they didn't mean it was good. So when you're getting feedback or you're giving feedback to people, always make sure they understand, you know, what you've communicated. And when you're getting feedback, always make sure you ask questions to clarify. Don't make assumptions, because as I just pointed out, you know, your perception and their perception could be very different. And as you know, it's quite usually in a lot of companies here, it's quite a flat management structure in a lot of organizations. It's not as hierarchical as some other countries. However, if you're working in a company that has management mostly from a hierarchical country, then you might find more hierarchical style of management. And also the power distance can be very different in different countries. And mostly in the Netherlands, when you join an organization, they like you to say, if you have a suggestion, it doesn't matter where you are ranking in the organization, they love to hear it with a solution. And they also like to hear, you know, if you see a problem, bring the solution as well. You know, don't just mention what the problem is. They like to know that you've thought of a possible solution, or somebody else thought of someone else that could maybe give a solution. But generally speaking, obviously, again, you have to check out what the culture is of an organization you're working for. But generally speaking, you know, they like you to bring your voice in, and they like to hear you. I'd say what's really important in the Netherlands is to advocate for yourself. Putting your head down and working hard and not telling anyone about what you're doing can mean sometimes you don't progress as quickly as you would like to because no one has noticed. It's important to share your positive stories, share what you're doing. And of course, it's important when you're integrating into a new country to be as positive as can be. That really, really helps. So just going on, are there any questions before I leave and hand over to the next speaker? Is there anything that anyone would like to ask me about career or communication, or anything that I could share some experience with you? Or is there anything I said that wasn't clear? You're all very quiet. Nothing, because I'll be leaving in a second and you'll have missed your chance.
I think that it was very clear, I'm guessing, otherwise.
Yeah, I feel like if I'm to speak on everyone's behalf, it's been a nice presentation. We're in the flow, so maybe that's why no one's saying
Oh,
anything. I didn't
Yeah,
realize you're done talking. Like,
that's great to hear. And you know, I've put these tips I've put about communication are so important. You know, to be specific in your communication, be assertive. And assertive doesn't mean aggressive, but I found it really hard to be assertive when I came to the Netherlands because it wasn't the way I was in my own country. And I had to ask more questions and speak up for myself and advocate for myself. And it really helped me to integrate into the society. So I would encourage you all to do the same. And I've put some information here about some, you know, successful workplace communication tips, and just my tips in general. And I wish you all the best of luck. You know, continue on your journey in a positive way. Always look for the good in things, and always advocate for yourself and be confident. That's really important. If you show you're confident, people will really believe in you. And you're all unique. So you all have a unique background, skills, beliefs, values. And so that uniqueness is important for the world, and it's important when you find what you want to do in life and you're working with you know, a diverse group of people, and you can all bring your uniqueness. You can the rewards are exponential. So thank you very much for joining me, and I wish you all the best of luck.
Karen, there's actually one question.
Oh.
Someone asked if you think networking is important here in the Netherlands, because he comes from a culture that's quite individualistic.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Colleen. Yes, networking is really important, and the Dutch are great networkers. If they want to know what dentist I should go to, what specialist doctor I should go to, they all ask each other. They're always networking and going in, tapping into their network. So that's why I said, you know, if you want to put your LinkedIn in the chat, you know, you can link in with each other, join my network. Then if you need somebody, I can, you know, with the specialist skill, I can maybe point you in the right direction if they're in my network. But 70% of people find their jobs through networking. Just a Dutch class, it can be, you know, at so many different formats of meeting people, telling them about yourself. You can get great tips, great information, but it's also really important for well-being. We need to connect more with people, and so it can give you a lot of joy. Even if you're an introvert, you still need to get out there and meet other people, and you don't have to meet lots, but you're important too. And so I would say, look up meetup.com, do some volunteering through your work, get involved. And even if you're shy, We've all been there. I've lived in a few different countries, and I'm shy. I really find it, I don't know what to say in the beginning when I meet people. You know, it's not easy, but if you can go out of your comfort zone, you'll learn a lot and you'll progress. So good luck. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, there's one question, but we are a little bit on a time constraint. If you have a very quick way of answering it, that would be great.
Yes.
It's about the correlation between networking and favoritism.
What's the correlation between networking and favoritism? Can you be a little bit more specific? What do you mean? I mean, if you're talking about looking for jobs, you can get people who can introduce you to a company through your network, but if you get an interview, you have to prove you're the right person for the job. So you're not going to get it just because the person introduced you. So the Dutch tend to be very fair, and you know, and in international companies especially, it's you know, even though you have a network and your network introduced you, you will find that you have to prove yourself and your skills. I hope that was short enough, but you can always link in with me and ask me if you wanted to be more specific about that question.
Thank you so much. We'll share.
Stop sharing.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your insightful contribution, Karen. It was very helpful, I think, and I think most of us agree. We'll share your presentation later on with all the participants so they can see all the resources you've linked, and then they can see your LinkedIn profile again in case they've missed it out now. Thank you so much for joining, Karen. We'll now move on then to our second workshop of today. It will be with Ms. Vasia Sarantopoulou. She's the founder, CEO, and head psychologist of Anti-Loneliness, which is a company that offers mental health services in the Netherlands and also worldwide. Vasia is also a mental health educator, promoting inner peace, mental strength, and healthy relationship with others and yourself. She's an advocate of life without mental health stigma, with an abundance of kindness, and with an undying openness of self-awareness and self-growth. And that's what she promotes through her services and online courses, and also through her collaboration with universities, companies, and organizations such as ours today. She'll today speak on building a strong sense of self while facing challenges of integrating into a new culture. Thank you so much, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Colleen, and thank you also for the invitation that the Center for African Justice, Peace, and Human Rights shared with me. I'm glad that I'm here, and I've already learned so much from Karen, and I'm thankful for everybody's participation. So let me start sharing my screen as well. All right. So today I'm going to talk about building a strong sense of self while facing the challenges of integrating into a new country. I find it a very fascinating, but also very important aspect of our integration, because being in a new country, it can be very tempting to leave our sense of self behind in our home country and to completely immerse and lose ourselves in the new country. And that, of course, we know that it's not something we would want, or the country who's hosting us. They would like our original self. They would like to learn us to bring our original ideas and personalities here. So let's start. Colleen already introduced me. I'm a psychologist. I've been living in the Netherlands already 10 years. I come from Greece, as you can understand from a long last name, but I'm not a very typical Greek, because I don't like feta cheese and olives. Maybe you're more Greek than me. But that's also why I'm talking about the integration and creating a strong self, because a strong self in a new country means you're creating a new identity, which is either the self or the values that you are carrying from your home country, nor the values of the country you're hosting. You're creating a new system and you're allowing yourself to be whoever you want to be by integrating these two cultures. I've studied psychology, I've done a lot of trainings, I've been supporting people in mental health, anxiety, depression, perfectionism, and relationships. I've been trained in couples therapy as well. And since the pandemic, I've also created my own online academy with courses, online courses for self-awareness, self-growth, creating a more positive mindset, perfectionism, procrastination, but also relationships, boundaries, attachment. And since the education, mental health education has been really a big part of my life the last 2 years, I've also collaborating with universities, supporting students from bachelor studies until PhD candidates. I've also been a speaker in international organizations and other institutions. And you can find more about me at antiloneliness.com. The reason that I chose the name anti-loneliness is first and foremost because when somebody is reaching out for help, they are feeling less lonely. They're feeling that somebody listens to them, understands them. But secondly, because I wanted to talk about the elephant in the room, we are struggling with loneliness, not only expats or internationals. There are many occasions, many people that they're struggling with loneliness, single mothers, fathers, people who are divorcing, people who have lost their beloved ones, people who are grieving. We have many occasions of people who are struggling with loneliness. We cannot escape it, and yet we don't talk enough about loneliness. So that was the second reason why I chose that name, because I wanted to talk more about that and give and create a safe space for people to understand and talk about loneliness and relieve themselves from this burden. So in this part of the webinar, we will be discussing the positive side of moving to a new country, the challenges and how to find ourselves and to boost our self-esteem. So before we go into the challenges, what do you think, what have you gained as a person who moved, as an individual who moved to a new country? Can you tell me in the chat, what have you gained? Let's talk about the positive side first, before we jump into the challenges and how to recover from them or how to deal with them. What have you gained from changing country or moving to a new country? What is the benefit of that? How this has affected or impacted positively your growth? Lots of connections, absolutely. Yeah. Knowledge, yes. Yes. Independence, adaptability. Yeah, we learn to be more adaptable. We were more independent.
Yeah, and I learned that resilience, I had way more resilience than I had given myself credit for. Just coming across situations that I didn't anticipate and how to overcome them and get creative. So
yeah, definitely. Who would have known, eh? We just realized new aspects of ourselves or aspects of ourselves that they were there, but we didn't know them.
yes.
So resilience is one of them. Fantastic. Professional development, learning of different cultures. Yeah, I mean, that for me, that has been an immense horizon broadening. When I'm learning about how people live in other cultures, it's unbelievable. Every time my mind is blown when I meet other people and they tell me more about their culture and what they eat for breakfast and how they celebrate holidays. Wow, I had no idea. I was just in darkness back there. I was blind. I didn't know anything. So I was so grateful with all this new learning. So the difference between self-confidence and self-esteem, before we again go back to the positive side, self-confidence is mainly about capabilities and skills. So you want to fix, for example, the window. You are confident that you have the skill, you got it, but you're not so confident that you can speak Dutch. Yes, it's a confidence in the skill. However, self-esteem is a little bit deeper than that. It's more about how you perceive yourself irrelevant of your capabilities and your skills, how much self-worth you see for yourself. So a person with high self-esteem, they consider themselves that they deserve love and support and connection in their behavior. They see themselves as worthy. That's a little bit the difference between self-confidence and self-esteem. And we're going to talk a little bit about the presentation will be about self-esteem, the idea, the strong self, not so much the self-confidence. So I want to make that clear. We're talking more about the deeper sense of self. So going back again to the positive side, yes, we achieved all the things that he put in the chat, he said there in the chat, but we also understand ourselves better. We learn ourselves, like Huma said. We make more clear career decisions because we gain more clarity about who we are. We get to face our likes and our dislikes, who we are and who we are not. We're more open to new experiences and cultures, and we get a better quality of education. We give ourselves a better chance for better quality of education. And then we grow more resilient, but also more self-reliant and confident. So there is a positive side, for sure. That's why we're doing it. But also there are challenges. So I've created 3 main challenges in our transition, challenges for our sense of self. And at the same time, I'm also presenting some ideas on how we can overcome these challenges. So wherever you are in your journey into integrating into the new country, you pick what works for you. You pick what is the tip, the tool that you would like to start using already from today. Let's start with the first one. The first challenge is loneliness. Let me clarify that. Loneliness is not being alone. That's something different. Loneliness is feeling lonely, not being alone. Feeling lonely is a feeling. Being alone is a state of being. So when you are alone at home, for example, and you don't have anybody to talk around you, maybe you will feel lonely, maybe not. One doesn't lead to the other. Just because you are at home alone doesn't mean that you will feel lonely. There are many people that they enjoy time alone. There are many people that they love spending some time alone. And the other way around, the fact that you're surrounded by people doesn't mean that you don't feel lonely. You can be with a partner and still feel disconnected from them and lonely in this relationship. You can be with your friends and still feel lonely. You can be surrounded by your colleagues, by a lot of people, and still feel that there's something that doesn't fit in here. I don't belong. I'm too different here. And that's the loneliness. It's not being alone. It's more about the feeling I don't belong. I'm too different. I'm feeling disconnected. And sometimes when we come into the new country, we have this feeling of loneliness because we don't fit in yet. They're speaking a different language. They're eating at a different dinner time. Why they're doing it? Why they're eating at 6 o'clock? This is still afternoon. So do I fit in here? Is it me? Can I survive here? That's a deep sense of loneliness. So what happens with that kind of loneliness is perfectly normal. I would definitely expect somebody to feel lonely the first weeks or months of being in a new country. Absolutely. Let's embrace that part of loneliness. But what is though not healthy is when we get trapped in this loneliness. When we start feeling lonely and then we create even more negative ideas about ourselves. So I get it, I'm feeling lonely because I'm in a new country, but if I stay in this loneliness for a long time, maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I don't deserve to find friends. Maybe they don't like me because I am Greek. Maybe there's something weird with me. And then we start going down this downward spiral of negative self-talk. We think we don't deserve to find friends. So this, as you can understand, leads to the sense of not belonging, but also to a deeper isolation, even more isolation. Our social skills starts to deteriorate. We used to go out and we were very easy with talking with people and we knew what to say and it was very, smooth. But now We don't know anymore. I have met a lot of people in my practice saying that, you know, I meet other people, but then I get into my head trying to think, what are you going to say next? Say something smart. Say something smart. These people are smart. Be careful what you say. And then eventually I don't speak because I am just so overwhelmed with all this negative self-talk and the pressure I put to myself. I don't enjoy that anymore. So what do we need? What do we need to do then instead? Let me know if you have experienced that, this negative self-talk, before I go there. Let me know, just put a yes or your own perspective, your own experience there, or unmute yourself as well. Let me know whether you have experienced this self-doubt. Maybe it's me, or maybe I don't belong here. Maybe they hate me. Maybe they don't like me. Maybe they are against me. Or I'm never going to find a friend. That's again a negative thought we're hitting. I will never find a friend here. I've been 4 years here in this hot country and I haven't found a friend. It's very difficult, almost impossible to find a friend. Yes, I can see some people saying, yes, yes, all right. Yes, definitely. Right. Yeah, of course. Of course, that's the trap of loneliness. Loneliness, the first stage is normal. The second stage is when we get trapped and we keep producing all these negative self-talk. So what I would like you to do is observe these thoughts. Let's take the steering wheel. Observe these negative thoughts. And when you observe them, write them down. Pick 3 of them and write them down. And the next thing that you need to do with these thoughts, after you read them, after you see how you speak about yourself, replace them, reverse these negative thoughts and replace them with 3 helpful, realistic thoughts. So if you're saying something like, I will never be able to find a friend, write it down and see how deep and harsh this message is. It's like a slap in the face all the time. And try to reverse it and replace it with a helpful thought. This is not a helpful thought. Even if you wanted to go out and meet other friends, if you were thinking this thing, you will never find a friend, why would you go out? It's deeply demotivating. So replace it with something motivating, but still realistic. So you don't need to say everybody loves me or I will find 1,000 friends. That's not realistic. But turn it into something realistic, such as, it's true, I haven't found a friend yet. This little word, yet, makes a big difference. I haven't found a friend yet, but I will keep trying, and trying will get me there eventually. I will ask people. I will manage. I will handle that. But for now, I don't have. Yes, true. But I will keep trying. So reverse it. Take this negative thought, the thought that is demotivating, and turn it into a helpful and realistic thought. And when you have them, just put them in a visible spot so that you can see them before you go to bed, or when you brush your teeth, or when you drink your coffee in the morning. Is that something that you would like to do already? Is that helpful so far? I see some smiles. Yes. All right. All right. Yes. Let's start with small steps, reversing this negativity and this self-doubt. Absolutely. All right. Yes, Matilda. Now, another thing that you can do, and it was also shared by Karen before, join community with same values and interests. Why I say same values? Of course, you can go to a group where you're learning something completely different. You are a person who likes knitting, but then you decide to join a group with, bungee jumping people. All right, sure, do it. But the reason that I suggest that you start with communities with same values is that if you are a little bit shy, or you are a little bit on this zone that we said before about the self-doubt, and you join a group like that, you already have something to talk about. You will start talking about knitting. Oh, what have you done? Oh, do you know how to do scarves? Oh, yes, scarves and socks are my favorite. So you already have something to talk without overanalyzing your thoughts. Say something smart, say something smart. And when you join these communities with the same values and same interests that you have, before you join, do a little bit of pep talk for you. Remind yourself your positive qualities. Make a list of things you value about yourself. Remember, we said before that we judge ourselves a lot, like, why would somebody like me? So I would like you to do this exercise before you go and meet other people. Remind yourself of all the elements that make you a good friend. I'm very funny, I'm supportive, I am friendly, I'm caring, I'm calling my friends, I'm there when they're struggling. I know things about, cultures. I am good at psychology. I know a few things. Remind yourself of your positive qualities. I'm loyal. I am trustworthy. Write them down and have this list memorized in your head so that you remember that when you go there, you're already worthy of becoming a friend of somebody else. There's somebody else out there waiting to be your friend as you are exactly today. You don't need to change anything. So remember that. And also I say lower your expectations. What I mean with that, when we go to meetups and meetings for other people, sometimes we tend to have very high expectations. I'm going to go there and I'm going to find my best friend. I'm going to find my love, my soulmate. That's way too high expectation. And I've met people that they go with these expectations, and because they're disappointed, they never go again in these meetings, which is the opposite of what we want. We want consistency. We want repetition. And the reason that I say lower your expectations is that when you go to a meeting for the first time, everybody's scared. Everybody is just putting themselves out there a tiny bit. They're not going to show their true self. Everybody is tiptoeing. They want to present themselves, their perfect self. They're hiding their vulnerabilities and their weaknesses. Nobody's there 100% themselves. Everybody is working really on their tiptoes. So keep that in mind and know that only when you go 2, 3, 4 times in the same meeting and meet the same people, they will start unraveling their true colors. You will start seeing them trusting you more. So give it time and lower your expectations and go to the same places again and again, because then that's your high chance to have somebody who will be your friend and connect with them deeply. The second thing that I want to talk about, it's about the sense of self. As I said in the beginning, sometimes you're bringing the values of your home country, and then in the country that you're living now, the host country, there's a conflict of these values. And it doesn't mean one is good, the other one is bad. It's just a conflict, just different values. And I remember I was, many years ago, I was treating a woman who was coming from a very collective culture that they have learned not to share with others their struggles. They learn to protect the others from their own personal struggles. So when she eventually came to therapy, it was very difficult for her to accept help. No, in my culture, we have learned to hide this, to hide our struggles and to give to other people, but not take. That's very new for me, very weird. So we were working a lot on this integration and creating a new set of cultural values, which will integrate her home values, but also the values of the place that she's here, that she's living, without her feeling all the time that she doesn't belong. So we're carrying this confusion and this ambivalence, and because of this distorted idea of self, we don't know who we are. We don't know what we're keeping and what we're leaving behind. Also, we are adjusting our career to that level. We're applying for jobs that they don't belong to our level. I've met a person who graduated from medical school, and she came here and she was just applying for works of an assistant, secretary, office assistant. And that was something that she could not see her worth. She could not see her sense of self and how she could be of service in this culture here. And of course, we have relationship issues. We have different ideas about what's a relationship here, and other people relate in a different way in the Netherlands or in your country, and in our country we would relate in a different way. So again, there's a clash. So what do we need to do then instead? So first of all, we need to practice what we call self-discerning reflections. This means that you're writing down reflections about yourself about what defines who you truly are and what are your reflections, what reflects your cultural upbringing. So you're writing down these reflections about who you are and what you bring from your culture, and you're trying to understand whether these two can fit. What I bring from my culture, do I want to keep doing that, or do I want to create another sense of identity? So get clarity on your values and define what matches and what classes. Sometimes we keep what we are bringing with us, sometimes we have to leave it behind. And that means that we have this challenging task to create a new identity. I'm not Greek, but I'm not Dutch here. I have created the Greek-Dutch identity, which is something in between. And I have kept what served me well from my Greek culture, and I have also kept what serves me well from the Dutch culture. And I've created another union of these two. Another thing that helps a lot with creating the sense of self is journaling. I don't know, has anybody tried journaling? Do you know journaling? Do you write your thoughts, your beliefs?
I feel like I always start and then I stop again. I'm not very consistent with it.
Ah,
that kind of
okay. All right. But you like it?
I like the idea of it,
Yeah.
but yeah, I would like to be more consistent with it. I think it's also an issue of
It is.
overachievement sometimes as well.
Well,
me.
if you make it too complicated, that's why you don't do it. It makes sense.
I think that's what I do.
Yeah, good. Problem solved. So you need to make it very simple. You have to make it 5 minutes, you know, every day. You have to have it next to your bed or somewhere where you spend the, you know, the evening, or to your couch, whatever, so that you see it next to you and you grab it and you do it. If you make it complicated and you are in this room, but then your journal is somewhere in another room that you have to travel, you're not going to do it. You're going to be tomorrow, whatever. So journaling helps a lot with this clarity and creating the strong self. Writing things down helps me concentrate. Yes, absolutely. That's a good mention here. When we journal our thoughts, we gain this clarity. We have more focus. We can concentrate. We know our values and our beliefs. We can we practice positive affirmations. That's all of these ideas. You don't need to do only one of them. You can try different ideas in journaling. We practice gratitude. I have my 5-minute gratitude journal next to me at the bed, and every night I'm practicing that. And that helps me, of course, to see myself and my world, the world around me, in a positive perspective, of course. Journal your achievements. Sometimes, especially when we feel like failures, I haven't done anything, nothing is useful, I haven't done anything useful. And of course, it's not this, that's not real. That's us forgetting what we have done. Journaling helps us remember. And also remember, alone time is not lonely time. Alone time can be very productive. You're spending time with yourself and you're connecting with yourself. This is the most important relationship in your life. You are the most important person in your life. You're connecting with yourself when you're alone. This is not a disgrace. This is not a weakness when you're spending time alone. And you can do a lot of fun things when you're alone. And the third part that I wanted to discuss is the decision making. So sometimes we're staying in a limbo for too long. I remember many years ago, I met a lady and she was already living 10 years in the Netherlands. And still, when I visited her place, she had boxes. And I was like, what happened? Are you moving? No, I still have them there just in case I leave the country and go back to my home country. Oh, do you plan to? No, but I don't know. Maybe I changed my mind. So this, I don't know, maybe I changed my mind, was her limbo for 10 years. Another time we met again, and she told me about a man she met, and then she liked him, and she had a really good connection. But then she said to me, you know, Vasya, I'm not going to proceed with that relationship. Why? What's happening? Well, I don't know. Maybe I will return back to my country. So I don't want to start a relationship now, and then I have to end it because I will return to my home country. So you see, this limbo can be so detrimental for our growth and our happiness and our relationships. So this is the decision making. Did I make a good decision? Will I regret it that I'm here? And that limits our own growth. And sometimes what fosters this limbo is nostalgia. We're missing our family, we're missing our friends. Oh, we had such a good time back then. Everything was so easy back then. Yeah, of course, because you worked on this to get easy for 30, 40 years, of course. And now you're only 3 months here. Of course, it's easier back then. But sometimes we tend to idolize home. We tend to think that these relationships that we had back then, they were very easy. No, they were not easy. You spent 10 years, 12 years in primary school and high school with these people. That's why this relationship ended up being easy. But it was not easy from the beginning. And now you're meeting people only for 2 hours and you think they're difficult. So sometimes we tend to see from different perspectives and idolize things back home. Maybe that's not the case and we're really missing home, or we really don't fit in here. But I'm talking about the case of maybe seeing things in a different perspective. So what to do instead? Defend your decisions. You made a decision, good. Stand by your ground. If you want to leave at some point, yes, sure, you can always leave. But while you're here, stay here. Give it a good chance. While you're staying in this country, do your best to have fun, to enjoy, to integrate, to meet people, instead of being here, but also with one foot at the other country. Deal with your guilt, with your regret, with your fears. And if it's difficult for you, speak to a coach or an expert psychologist who can help you, who know this experience. And of course, direct yourself, instead of seeing what's missing here, what do you find here? What gives you joy and what gives you meaning? Focus on flow, not perfection. We're not creating a perfect life, but we're creating a life where things are happening. We are growing, we're learning. Focus on consistency, not results. I don't need to write the perfect journal, but I just need to write two minutes a day on my journal. That's consistency. Results will come, but we're focusing on consistency. Drop the comparisons. You don't need to compare Dutch with Greek or Greek with other Greeks or whatever. That doesn't help. You're just in a competition of who's right, who's wrong. You're given this opportunity to start over when you come to a new country. So visualize your ideal life and your ideal lifestyle. How would that look like? And make it happen. That's your opportunity. You can be whoever you want here. That's a fresh start. And it will help if you organize your life. Just put some activities in order and organize your home, organize your activities around it. And remember to reward yourself for every little step. Don't wait for fireworks. Don't wait for something big to happen in your life in order to reward. You are here and that's already immense. That's so difficult and not so many people dare to do that. So already you deserve congratulations for that. You're brave, you're resilient. So reward yourself for every little step. Last but not least, that's a quote that I love. If you're looking for evidence that you don't belong, you will find it. It's there. But this is not what we're doing here. We're not negotiating your self-worth. You will find the people, the activities, and the culture that you belong. We're not looking for evidence where we don't belong. We're looking for evidence where we belong. Thank you very much. Let me know if you have any questions. Of course, I would love to connect with you. My LinkedIn, you can find it in the chat box as well. Instagram, Anti-Loneliness, or my website, or my YouTube channel as well, where I create a lot of videos on mental health. Thank you very much for your nice words. Thank you, Astrid. I'm happy to hear that you like the tips and my energy. Thank you very much. Let me know if you have any questions.
Yes, feel free to either unmute yourself, ask any questions, or drop them in the chat.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I come from the Caribbean, so weather and the culture is a little bit different from, for example, in the Netherlands. And sometimes, especially when it comes to December, it becomes a little bit dark. And I do have community, and there's also other people who I'm around who also feels the same way. Do you have any tip because sometimes it's expensive to go back in December.
Yeah, I
And do you
know.
have any tips how in those times, especially in the winter time, how to navigate that?
Good. I can resonate because in Greece we also have good weather the majority of the year. So what I will tell you what I try, because especially in somewhere in the middle of the winter, when you have already gone through 3 months of grayness and cold and rain and wind, and you have another 3 for sure to go through, it can get really heavy. So one thing that I do is I remind myself, what's the reason why I came here? I didn't come here for the weather. That might sound simple, but that again goes to the values. I didn't come here for the weather. I prefer to be in a country that doesn't have the perfect weather, or it has a little bit of a depressive weather, but my life is different now, and I enjoy all the other aspects of this life. And I also know that since I cannot bring sun outside in the sky, I try to bring sun in my life. So I try to create positivity by going, visiting my friends, organizing dinners, or having them over, for a board game. So creating all these activities, especially if you cannot afford going back to your country or the tickets are very expensive, create these activities, because the one of the most important needs we have, emotional needs, is connection, and that can make up for anything else that is missing in our life. So focus more on that. And also embracing the fact that it is disappointing. I wish there was a country that had everything, the good weather and the system and the education and the healthcare and all these cultures. That I wish there was a country like that, but we're not aiming for perfection, as we said, and embrace this feeling and accept that this is sad sometimes. Be with people, be with your friends, try to find activities that you enjoy, and also remind yourself that I am here for another reason, not the weather. I hope it helps.
Thank you. There's also another question in the chat, actually.
Yeah, is the role of psychologist important for integration? You mean for talking to a psychologist, right?
I think so.
I think so, right. Yes, okay. Yes, probably. Yes, all right, yes. I think the role of a psychologist is generally useful, not because I'm a psychologist, but also because I visit a psychologist. It's always helpful to know yourself and to do that with the help of somebody else. It doesn't mean that just because I'm a psychologist, I don't need help. Of course I need help. I need somebody to see my life from an objective perspective, to see my life outside of my head. So having somebody, a psychologist or a mentor or a coach, that they would help you during this integration, and they would support you, and they would do the right questions, and they would help you recover maybe for previous emotional wounds that you're still carrying here. That would be fantastic, of course. And you will see that this journey, the therapy journey, will definitely pay off in your future integration, but also in your future success in life. I've met so many people that they're just sabotaging themselves. And when they try therapy, or they try meeting with a coach or a psychologist, then eventually the growth is happening faster, way faster. Good question.
Thank you so much. I'm guessing that was all, since nothing else came. Thanks so much, Vasia, for your wonderful contribution. I found it very insightful, and I'm guessing that a lack of questions. Many people thought so as well.
They can always ask me, I gave my LinkedIn account, and they can ask me there, and I'll send me an email. And of course, I always reply. Thank you so much, Colleen, for the invitation.
Thank you so much. We will move on then to our next speaker, which is Miss Jordi Lassoy. She's an advisor and trainer in the field of diversity and inclusion, migration and integration, and in the broadest sense of the word. She is known as a passionate woman and a refugee advocate. She is, based on her own experience, and the demands she identified throughout her career on culture, gender, and faith-sensitive approach in the integration process, she founded the organization Kultur in Harmonie, which I hope I pronounced correct because I don't really speak Dutch, to contribute to a sustainable integration. She believes that integration is a two-way approach, and this is why she guides and empowers newcomers with the integration process in the Netherlands. She also gives consultations and cultural gender sensitivity trainings to professionals and organizations that deal with these matters. So welcome, Jordi. She will speak today on embracing a new culture and achieving successful integration and social coherence. The floor is yours. Oh, you're muted. It happened before already.
Hello, thank you so much, Colin, and good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And can you see my presentation?
Yeah, we can see it as well.
I will put it on slideshow, then I want to see it. It's really great to be here among you, and I have just heard a little bit of the presentation of the speaker before me. Really, really exciting, but I didn't really listen to it in general, but only the last part. It's very interesting. My presentation will be different, I guess, because I am talking more from our experience, from my organization point of view. So it will be a little different, but also sometimes it's overlapping. So I will be starting. So my name is Jordi Lassoy. I am originally from Ethiopia and Eritrea. My parents are from Eritrea, but I was born and raised in Ethiopia. I came to the Netherlands in 2010. And since then, I'm working as a cultural interpreter and cultural mediator and interpreter. And besides, I also co-founded together with my colleagues the company or the foundation Cultures in Harmony. The translation is Cultures in Harmony. So I will go a little bit to my biography. Yeah, as I said, I was raised and born in Ethiopia. I studied international business management and accountancy. I also have a psychology background and study, which I didn't finish. And yeah, I came in 2010 to the Netherlands with a different experience, of course, with a different cultural experience and orientation. And when I came to the Netherlands, of course, just like all of you, I also got the cultural shock and I couldn't find a job. So I was looking for a job for the first 5 years almost, I would say. I was looking for a job, but I couldn't find it. So I sent, I sent like for different jobs, like more than 200 letters I sent to organizations, to vacancies, but the answer was always a rejection. Why? Because I didn't speak the language. That was the only reason. While I have all the competition, everything what they were asking, but the language was the biggest issue. So after 5 years, I decided to start for myself. So that was in 2014-15, when the refugees from Syria and Eritrea came to Europe. That was the higher flow. I started as a volunteer translating for the Dutch Refugee Council. And that's when I got to know that there is a huge gap, cultural gap. Because that, of course, I myself experienced this cultural shock. But when I started working as a volunteer at the Dutch Refugee Council, that's when I got to know how big the cultural differences are, especially for people who are low educated or people from a far culture that's really far from the European culture. So yeah, I started working as a translator and later on also as a cultural translator, cultural mediator. And later I co-founded Cultures in Harmony to help the newcomers in the Netherlands. At this moment, I work as a trainer about culture differences, about inclusion, migration, integration issues. I also advise municipalities and lawmakers about the cultural differences and how to bridge the gaps. Besides, I'm also a member of advisory board in different groups, in different ministries, and also at the UNHCR about the family reunification process. So these are some of the highlights, the job, what I do. As you can see, I have been in Geneva in 2019 to address the mental health issues on the migration, on the refugees and migrants. Because of the cultural shock, people can develop psychological problems. And that's not really addressed because countries are always talking about the language issues, the integration issues, but they forgot to talk about the mental health issues. And I was there to address that matter. Yeah, often I ask myself, what is actually the difference between expats and immigrants? Can someone tell me, how do you understand these two differences actually? Can someone give me an answer? What are the biggest differences between these two groups? You can also put it on the chat.
Personally, I don't see any difference. I've had this conversation with expat friends, and really, there is no difference. But it's the perception
Yes.
from communities and the host country. It's how the immigrants are perceived.
Exactly. It's a perception indeed. Yeah. But indeed, expats get more rights, right?
Yeah.
They get paid really more than even the locals, while they have the same skills, the same abilities, but we have this perception indeed. What I really don't understand mostly, okay, for the expats, maybe we can make exceptions, but what I don't understand is why do we make exceptions for the spouses of the expats? As we can see, even the expats' spouses, they get easily a job, or they get an education, access to education or a job, better than the refugees who already have the status to stay and live in the country. I will send you this link, maybe you might know it. There was a photo exposition about, maybe you can see the photo here down under, this photo. There was an artist who exposed the photos on the bus stop, and then he was just randomly asking people, what do you see here? Is it an expat or an immigrant? And indeed, as you say, Huma, people have this perception. People from African countries or the Muslim beliefs, they are more often refugees, while people who are light-skinned, they are labeled as highly educated or expats. And like this photo down under, this woman is a professor at the Maastricht University, but most of the people who are thinking she is a refugee. So I found it very interesting, these two matters. We are also seeing on the integration, while the expats or their spouses are working, but the refugees, for example, at the restaurant, wherever you go in the Netherlands at this moment, you see English-speaking waiters at the restaurant, but you don't see refugees working as a waitress or waiters. They are always at the back in the kitchen, washing the dishes, while they also speak the language or they also want to work, but they don't get this kind of chance. So there is an inequality. There are around 2.6 million people lives in the Netherlands who are not born in this country. So they represent, or in total, they represent about 200 nationalities, all these people. That was a recent research. And Netherlands is becoming multicultural and diverse, but yet refugees, especially refugees, cannot get a job, or they are not seen as an equal or as an enrichment for the society. So that's why me and my colleagues, there is also another colleague, I just saw her coming in, founded a foundation to help the refugees, the migrants, because we have our own experience, but we also see it in our neighbors, how refugees are suffering, because they have a really difficult experience to come to reach Europe. But once they come here, the expectations and the experiences are completely different than what they had in their mind. So the activities of our organization is we give cultural trainings, not only for the refugees, but also for the policymakers, for the civil societies, for the civil servants about the cultural differences, because we believe that integration has to come from both ways. It takes two to tango, right? One person only cannot dance a tango. You need two people. But most of the time, as a society, we expect only the refugees to integrate in our society, while the society is not doing the effort to meet them. So what we are doing is, from our organization, we organize cultural events to meet the refugees, the migrants, to show their culture. And most of the time, people see only a refugee identity, while a person can have different identities. A refugee is not only a refugee. They have so many other identities. Identity can be formed by norms, culture, beliefs, background. Different things can form an identity, but most of the time we see only one part of it. So to bridge that kind of gap and to raise awareness, we organize this kind of sessions so that people can meet each other, talk, and then maybe get to know each other and then be friends. Further, we also do research with different organizations, universities, about the migration matters. Also for the refugees, we create awareness raising sessions about mental health, for example, because in the culture from where I come from, talking about psychological issues are taboo topics, because people doesn't talk about their psychological issues. So they only focus about the future, not about the past. But if you don't solve the past, you cannot move to your future. So we create this kind of awareness sessions to talk about this kind of issues, about sexuality, about psychological issues, and more other topics. If I'm going too fast, then please let me know. And if you have a question, please, you can interrupt me. As I just said now, so we talk about the mental health issues because that's a huge factor for an integration. As the speaker before me said, yeah, if you're not really healthy enough, if you don't have peace on your mind, you cannot integrate, you cannot learn, you cannot work. But talking about mental health issue is not easy for everyone. So that's why we really emphasize about the mental health issues. We also create awareness sessions about how to get help, where to get help, how to ask your questions, how to address your issues. Because in some of the cultures, we don't even have words for depression, for stress, to explain that kind of words. You need some words. You need to know how to express them in order to get help. About sexuality and the gender inclusion. the cultural differences, especially parenting issues. I myself am a mother of two. I had to really struggle to raise my children in this country because I came from a different society. I was raised in a different way than how I raise now my kids. But nobody tells you how to do it. There is no instruction, there's no manual how to raise kids. Everyone does it the way it suits them. But you need sometimes, role models, people that can tell you how to raise children in the way that also suits your own culture, but also it suits in this culture where you're living in. So we see a lot of gap on parenting issues, and we try to bridge that kind of gap as well from our own experience. And the rules and the regulations are different here. And the tax authority and using the technology, internet, everything is different when you come to a new country, let alone to live here. Even when we go on vacation to a country, after a week or so, then you don't know what to do. You need to have information. You need to know how to live in that country. But if you don't know, if you don't know anyone, if you don't have information, then you feel lost. The soft skills, the communication, about digitalizing, professionalizing, it's all different. So we also teach that kind of things. Finding a job might be interesting for you as well after you study. Of course, everyone wants to work like I did. I didn't know where to find a job, but I was just trying. I was just applying everywhere, wherever I see a vacancy. But that was not really an efficient way to find a job. But if you don't know, you would just try. And I was indeed rejected for more than 200 times, but it didn't turn me down. I was really keep trying until I get my dream job. I was offered cleaning jobs, working at the restaurant, washing dishes. Of course, it's fine. Everything, a work is a work. I respect, but that's not my dream job. And once you're in, maybe you will stay there. And I was afraid to do so. So I didn't do that kind of job, except I tried once at the fabric of a cosmetic industry. I went there, I tried it for 2 days, and I said, no, this is not for me, really. No, I'm not gonna do this. So, but I had the privilege not to do that. So if you have to try something, just try it. I really encourage you to try it. And then you know, because it will also give you a different perspective. So I had also a higher expectation when I come here. I thought now I am highly educated, so I will find easily a job, but that was not the case. So expectations are really, it's also really a very important matter, because a speaker before me also said, lower expectations. I also advise that really for other people, because it helps you to move on. In the COVID time, it was a difficult time for everyone, but especially if you don't speak the language and you don't know what's happening around you, that can be very stressful. And we work with refugees and migrants, and most of them doesn't speak the language. So it was really, really difficult for them to survive at that moment. So we created, together with the next speaker, Milka, she's also in our group, and also other colleagues who had a foundation, we joined forces and we created a help desk for newcomers. And that was in 2 languages, in Arabic and Tigrinya, the Eritrean language, but also in English. Even some people were calling us, Polish people were calling us, because they were really desperate to get information. So we were doing our best. We were self-funded, but the initiative came from ours because we have the experience. We know what's happening around us. So we were doing the government's job at that moment. And we got, as you see, a lot of media attention. But that didn't give us a way to a sustainable collaboration with ministries or with our organizations. They really applaud for us, but then afterwards it's all done. But we're still trying our best to empower the refugees. Now I'll tell you about adapting a new culture. Of course, you all know the challenge. The food that they are eating, the Dutch people are eating, is different. The climate, it's always cold, except now in the springtime, in the summertime. But even in the springtime, we feel it's cold, especially if for the people who come from a warmer country. Indeed, you lack information. You don't know what to ask. You don't know where to ask, whom to ask. So the lack of information, that's one of the biggest challenge. Sense of belongingness. You don't fit in this country because everything is different. If you count every day what's happening around you, it's all different. But when you really take the moment and see and find the, instead of the differences, if you try to see the similarities, you also find similarities between your culture and the culture of the Dutch culture. But most of the time we see only the differences. And that's why you feel left alone and maybe isolated, especially if you come for your study, for education. You're always studying, you're always in your room, and maybe you have some contact with your fellow students, but then you're not really integrated in the society. So you might feel lonely and isolated. That's also because you don't, most of people who come from other countries, we don't really accept the differences, as I said earlier. Is someone writing on the screen? Oh, okay.
I don't think so.
Okay, I saw a scratch. Yeah, and the higher expectation, as I said, because we think now we speak English, we'll find a job maybe, or I'm highly educated, I might find a job, I will find friends, but that's not as easy. Maybe for some people it is, but not for everyone. And the different habits and norms, all the celebrations are different. And yeah, what the food that people eat, what time they eat, how they eat it is all different. And that makes you feel alone and left alone, especially if you don't have a community from your own country. Maybe you know this as well, the culture shock. When you go to a different country, it works for everyone. Whether you are a tourist or a student or a migrant, it works for everyone, this curve. When you arrive at the country, then you are on the honeymoon mood. So you're very much excited, you are in the new culture, in a new country. So you have this higher expectation, so you'll be really happy at that moment. But then if you stay for a while, then it goes down, your mood goes down, because you come to learn the culture shock about all the above list what I just mentioned. And then after the culture shock, of course, you feel lonely, isolated. If you see here on the second image, it's an example in France. There are in different countries, but I couldn't find any in the Dutch context. So after you left your country, you arrived in Holland, and then you got to this culture shock, and that gives you this, this unhappiness. And then after a while, if you give it a time, then you can start to adjust a little bit. Maybe you make some friends or neighbors, or maybe you're engaged to activities, or maybe you have something to do, and then you start to adjust a little bit. And then maybe you complete your studies, or you found a job. And for people who decide to go back to their country, And again, in their own country, they have to adjust again. It's not just you go there and then you will be part of the society. No, because you have been here or in other country for a while. So you have some different habits as well. So when you go to your country, you also need to adjust for a while. So it takes some time. And then it goes like that. So like that, like up and down, up and down. But if you stay here, yes, after some time, research show that after 5 years, you will be able to ground and be able to integrate. But that 5 year, of course, it's different from person to person, but the first 5 years is really adjustment time. And then you will start to feel like home. Okay, I see another slide on my screen. So that's my closing remark. I will just read it for you, and then I will open the floor for questions. Is that okay? Okay. My closing remarks for you would be get to know the refugees, especially the refugees as a person, as an individual, not as a group, not as a community. See the person as a person. Do what you can do on your own power, because everyone has a power. Maybe the degrees can be different, but everyone has a power. Everyone can do something to a society, to a community. It can be your knowledge sharing, it can be capacity strengthening, it can be a language lesson, guidance, or volunteer job. Everyone can do something for the community. And be an advocate to those who doesn't have a voice, as me and my colleagues are. We advocate in all matters about refugee matters, about handicapped people, about children, abused people, and the minorities. So do something on your own power. Don't think, I don't have a power. No, everyone can do something. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, as you all are a younger generation. So don't be afraid to make mistakes, really. People who doesn't try won't make a failure, won't make a mistake. And if you don't make a mistake, you don't learn, you don't get succeed. So make mistakes and learn from them. Treat everyone the way you wish to be treated. Every person deserves respect, as we also want to be respected. So it sounds like a cliche, but it's true. Really treat the other person just like the way you want to be treated. Further, enjoy life, travel, meet new people and new culture, because that really makes you a better person, a different person. I have the migration background, but also to see it from the other side. Last year, me and my family hosted a student for a cultural exchange from Italy. And she was here with us for a year. And I have seen the cultural shock with her as well, how she was struggling really to fit. She came from European country, but yet she had it really, really hard. The first couple of months, 3-4 months, yeah, it was really a challenge for her, because everything what we eat is different for her. The climate is different. She doesn't have friends. She doesn't belong here. But after about 5-6 months, she started to adjust. And then when she left, she was really crying because she doesn't want to go. And when she arrived there in Italy, she also told us the same thing. It also takes her a while to adjust there, to fit in there within her family. So traveling, trying new things makes you a better person. So don't be afraid. Embrace the new culture and the place where you are in, and focus on the positive things. There are a lot of ups and downs in life, but try to focus on the positive things. That was actually the last thing, and accept the new culture, because the Dutch culture has also a lot of really good things to offer. So try to accept the culture and see the positive side, focus on the positive side. And that was my presentation. I thank you. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you so much. Yeah, either raise your hand or just feel free to speak or write in the chat if you have any questions for Jordi. Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah.
I actually might I kept wondering about the expat versus immigrant question, because also I was confused because I always felt like there was kind of a difference, even though there is. I know that there is not really a difference technically, but it is treated a different way. So I was always wondering how it comes about this. Who names who an immigrant and who names who an expat? Do you identify like that also, or is it just the way you're perceived?
No, I haven't. I haven't, but I think it has been for a longer time, right? In this context of expats, they bring something. That's how I also heard it from other people. So expats, they bring something, a knowledge or something, but refugees, they come to take something from a country.
Okay.
So that's the perception, and it has been for a longer time, but I don't know where it comes from.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't think there are any questions then. No. Okay, thank you so much for your contribution. It was really interesting and very important.
Thank you. Thank you very much for listening, and I wish you good luck on your studies or in your life, whatever you are doing. Good luck. Hold on there. You will be there. You will get successful, really, and things will get easier. Just give them time. Try to engage in your community and society, and do something on your power. Yeah, things will get better and easier.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We'll then move on to our final speaker, actually. It is Miss Milka Yeman. She's the founder of the Limat Foundation. She's mentioned a few times by Jordi during her presentation, as they do a lot of similar work. The Limat Foundation is dedicated to championing for a better policy towards newcomers and refugees in the Netherlands. In the recent years, she has worked on several field missions in southern Italy as a national expert for the European Asylum Support Office and on resettlement programs for Syrian refugees in Turkey. She's also the head of the International Foundation of GroenLinks, which unites and strengthens international progressive and left-wing partners in the upcoming Green Movement on the basis of shared ambitions in Europe and the Middle East. Milka is currently the city councilor for the GroenLinks in the municipality of Amsterdam, responsible for education, poverty reduction, integration, and democracy. Thank you so much. She will be speaking today on embarking on a journey of change and building resilience around life's challenges. So the floor is yours. Please feel free to share your screen and begin your presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And it was also great hearing the presentation of Jordi, my friend, but definitely also a colleague in the field. So is it better, Colleen, if you share the presentation or if I share it? Let me see.
I think it's easier for you to share because you can then know when to move on to your next slide.
Okay.
You're co-host as well. So
okay, that's great. Let me see. I haven't done this in a while. Yeah,
just
okay.
The middle button then.
Yeah,
we can also do it for you if you want.
I think it's better because it's saying that I have to give permission, things like that. It's my work.
Okay.
So maybe that's why it's acting
No
up. If you could do it, that would be great.
Yes. Azizat, can you do it then, please?
Yes, just give me a moment.
No problem.
Okay, I think I have it.
So Colleen and I were talking about how I should, what should I mention in the presentation? Also because Jordi is a colleague and a friend of mine, and we actually share the same vision and mission actually in our work, in our foundation. So this is also why we cooperate very well together. And like she mentioned, we also organized this help desk during Corona times. And so this is why today I will focus a little bit more on the policies at this moment, what is in Holland and what's okay, what's going well, but also a little bit where is the room for improvement and why it's also so important to have organizations like maybe Jordi's or ours to keep involved in this whole field of integration. So you can go directly to the first slide. Thank you. Well, actually, Colleen already mentioned everything. So in 2015, I was actually working at the COA in Netherlands. That's the governmental organization that's responsible for all the supervision and first reception of all refugees. So it's actually the organization that's responsible for all the asylum seeker centers here throughout the country. And while I was working there, I did also some missions on relocation, relocation of refugees arriving from Libya. And I did some missions in Lampedusa and Sicily, like Colleen mentioned, and also on the relocation of Syrian refugees from Turkey. But actually during my work at the COA, I was also really seeing that, you know, what Jordi actually mentioned, that there was a big gap between certain policies and also the needs of newcomers. And myself, I also have an Eritrean background, and you know, I had all these questions from colleagues like, hey, so why don't they look me in the eye? Maybe they're not really interested in learning a new language, but it looks like they're not interested. And I will say, well, no, that's not that. It's just, you know, you're a teacher and it's out of respect. They don't look at you directly. There were different questions, and a lot of it actually had to do with cultural differences. So there's this cultural miscommunication that would lead to this stereotype of Eritrean refugees. And next to that, I would sometimes later on see Eritrean refugees who were living in the camp where I was working, and I was asking them, so how's everything going in the municipality? Hey, you have your own house, you must be really happy now. And they actually said that they would rather go back living in the camp because things were so complicated living in the municipality. It was so, you know, all these papers, all of these this thing that you have to do yourself, you know, this whole own responsibility, but no one who really guides you first in that process or tells you actually what to do and how you can do it the best. So it was really stressful actually, and my mom and I were really seeing this from close, me from my work, she also from the place that we live in, because I grew up in Assen, that's a small town in the north of the Netherlands. But while I was living there, we were like one of the few Eritreans, and now there were more Eritrean newcomers coming and to live in this small city. So all of the organizations knew, you know, we were the Eritreans. So they would come to my mom and ask them all these questions like, can you please help us? And we don't know what to do, etc., etc. So this is actually when the need came. We said, well, we have to do something to narrow this gap, you know, to provide trainings and policymakers about how they can make policy that will also suit and benefit the needs of newcomers in order to have a fair chance of integration, actually. And also give trainings to the newcomers themselves. You know, there's a lot of differences, cultural differences, but also practical differences. You know, everything is so digital here in this country and everything is so complicated. And we always tell everyone that it's even complicated for people who are born here, who know the language. Nowadays, the complex with taxes or your finance or whatsoever, even for someone who's born, and it's really complicated from your health, from the healthcare system to organizing all of these, you know, bureaucratic things. It's not easy. So mind you, if you just got into this country not knowing language, culture, or whatsoever. So this is actually why we started this foundation, and it's called Lem'at. And Lem'at actually in the Tigrinya language means growth and development. This is, you know, we would like to see them grow and develop into the people that they want to be. And last year we got together, we had a merge actually with a like-minded organization, Nieuwlander. And Nieuwlander is an organization that actually does the same things, but then not only focusing on Eritrean refugees, but focusing on all refugees, so from whatever country they come from. And we said we should, you know, unite because there's still a lot of work to do, and it was a nice way to see how we can, you know, combine our strengths in this work that we are doing. So, but now at this moment, I am not the director anymore at the organization. We have another director, and this is because I became a city councillor last year for the Green Left Party in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. And next to that, I'm also working for the international organization for the Green Left Party. So we work in the Middle East and South Europe and work actually on strengthening political parties and strengthening youth organization on decision-making or democracy tools. So within my work as a city councillor, I still, you know, see how we can also engage more newcomers, refugees, and always, you know, looking out, of course, but then more from a political and policy side. Yeah, can go to the next slide. Oh, this is just my favorite, one of my favorite pictures. I just always like to show this one. And it's a picture taken in Eritrea. Actually, it's in one of the villages in the country, and it just makes me really happy because, you know, sometimes when we talk about refugees, we only see this certain side, or, you know, especially how the media sometimes frame it, but at the end, you know, they were all children or are youngsters who were also having their life and were self-reliant in their own way. It's maybe not the way that we expect them to be, but they are. So we always have to think of that point, that it's not that you have to like re-educate them, but we have to see how we can have use all of these skills they have, all of this everything that they already build up on, how we can just make it also useful here in this country within a different context. So yeah. So there are so many policies that we could discuss, but since we are talking about integration, I thought maybe we can discuss the Wet Inburgering. It's the civic integration law here in the Netherlands. And we have a renewed one actually last year. And this is because we were also really not satisfied with how the law was implemented the years before. So it was also our organizations, Jordi's, mine, and many more in the field who were saying this law at this moment, these policies are not beneficial for the refugees at this moment. So the law is there because, well, this is what it states. The Dutch government wants everyone who lives in the Netherlands to be able to participate in the Dutch society. This meaning, you know, knowing about the Dutch culture, speaking the Dutch language, and also being to work or study independently. And the old law was actually telling refugees to get a loan. They would get a loan from the Ministry of how do you say it? It's an organization that's actually linked to to one of the ministries, and you get a loan from them. And with that loan, you would go to one of the languages school and buy a course actually. And if you didn't finish your language course within certain years, you had to pay back the loan. So mind you, you know, you're just new in a country, and then there are all of these schools, and you have to choose yourself in which one to choose and what kind of course is best for you. So after a few years and after a lot of complaints, they switched it up because they also saw that there were a lot of language schools who were there to make profit and also made a lot of abuse of the newcomers. You know, they would make deals like, you know what, if you give us the money, you would get half, and then we will say that at least you tried, but you were not able enough to finish everything, so that at least you can go for your nationality later. You know, all of these things, or they received a lot of money, but not really good classes, because yeah, it was a commercial, a lot of times commercial parties who were providing these Dutch classes. So there was a lot of lobby for this new law, and now the responsibility of this of the implementation of the law is back to the municipality. So the municipality will cooperate with one of the language schools, and then the newcomers living in that municipality can go to that one that's verified and is trustful as well. And the municipality is there also to check up the quality and how things are going, and will be monitoring and evaluating this. So, and another thing is that before that, yeah, this is good. No, it's good. You can go to the next one. Thank you. Yes. So the benefits of this new civic integration law is that now there are 3 different routes. So before that, it was just like, you know, you come here, you learn the language on this level and you do this course and then that's it. Not even, you know, accounting any background of the refugee, you know, like refugees is not like one group, you know, someone has maybe a certain background in a certain area, someone did already a study, or someone because of was in a long time in maybe in camps where they didn't have good education. So now at least they have like 3 different routes. One of them is like B1, that's for people who can maybe learn really fast in intensive course and get Dutch on a really high level. The other one is like more of an educational route, so that you can do, it will prepare you actually to do like a study afterwards, maybe a bachelor or maybe vocational training. And the other one is for people who it's a route that maybe you won't finish Dutch in the highest level, but it's more important for you to be self-reliant. So financial skills, digital skills. So you have these 3 different routes looking at your needs and the things that you need in order to have like a better integration course that fits your needs, but also your capacities. Yeah, the municipality can help and facilitate these language courses. And what an important thing it's that newcomers don't have to take a loan anymore. So this is really stress relieving, and I'm really happy that at least they changed this policy and this law. Yeah, so. But there's always room for improvement, and this is also what I would like to share. I always think, and I think with me, probably Jordi the same, like also listening to her story, you would understand why, but there is still this, you know, we can also still implement more cultural awareness, more attention for mental health of newcomers, and also more engagement of newcomers or people with a refugee background in decision-making and policy-making organizations. And why is this cultural awareness? The cultural awareness is extremely important, because, you know, you need to know from each other's cultures what's important in this, and in order to have no miscommunication during you know, your cooperation or during your first steps here in this country. And the mental health issue is that I don't think a lot of most of the people who work with newcomers will know a little bit, but would not know everything that what people have been through, you know, in maybe the country of origin, but also on the way here. You know, if you think of the Libya roads, you know, crossing the sea, having horrible things done with or horrible situations with smugglers. You know, so this is all of the things that happened while they, you know, when they were on their way to this new country. But then while you're at the new country, you really, in the first few years, you're in this surviving mode. You're just like trying to fix everything, you know, like get your house, get your language courses, get all of these things done, set up, maybe your children have to go to school, all of these things. And then what we've been seeing now is that actually after a few years, people sit down and, people sit and they're more maybe in a situation that the basic needs are like fulfilled, and, you know, they have their house and all of these things. And then it hits them, and it has actually what they have been through all of these years. And also here in you know, starting this new country, starting this new life in the country, maybe not always having the network around you that you would like to, trying to forget certain things, you know, in certain cultures, it's also not we're not used to talking openly about, you know, mental health, and this sometimes in a few years you can see it. Yeah? So nowadays we see a lot of young people actually drinking more, or having, or, you know, maybe using drugs just to forget what they've been through, and just to see it as a more, you know, use it actually as a coping mechanism. So within this civics integration course, it's really practical, you know, learn the language because you need to know, you need to go to work, maybe learn about the Dutch culture because, you know, you need to know how to deal with maybe neighbors or your employer, etc., etc. But there is little or not so much room for, you know, prevention or etc. on mental health or stress reduction. And then the more engagement of newcomers or people with a refugee background in decision making and policy making organizations, well, I think that's a very, very important one, because at the end, you cannot make policies without engaging people who's concerning these policies. So someone who has no, you know, experience maybe, or would not know what it would mean to start a new life, or not, you know, aware of the cultural context, but also all the difficulties, it would be difficult for them to make good policies that would also fit the needs of all of these newcomers. So I think in all times, we also should always think of like inclusion of the different groups that you're making the policy for. Go to the next slide. Yeah, we can skip this one. It's just a thing. It's also in Dutch, but it's also a thing that I always share, because culture and culture awareness, why it's so important is actually because, you know, everyone sees culture in a different way. For some of them, culture is more important, and you see sometimes in more Western countries, it's a little bit different, you know, it's a really subjective perspective, actually, if we think about culture and how we implement or how we see culture. And this is just a small thing in mental health. It's a Dutch, it's the Ministry of Health, Volksgezondheid. They did a big research actually on the mental health aspect of newcomers. And I was really happy that they did it, because actually what they saw in this research is that, well, physically, a lot of newcomers are okay. Yeah, it's pretty okay. But they see that the mental health and the mental health actually is really a problem. This is not great while they did the research. I mean, they saw that this is not always really good. And this has to do with also the traumas and the things that they, you know, been through, but definitely also because at this time in the Netherlands, we also have a big shortage of specialist help in mental care as well. So it's like two things actually. So I think it's really good that this report came, because then we also have data on why, and also that things are not going well with the mental health of newcomers in the state. Yes, can be next one. Yeah. So nothing about us without us. This is the last point that I was pointing out, actually. So municipalities, but definitely also the national government should engage more newcomers, but also refugee-led organizations, because of the expertise, the knowledge, and all of these things that, you know, they should definitely be involved in decision-making concerning refugee or newcomers policies. But also the let's say the formal social organizations, so the bigger organization who work with newcomers, should also have a staff with more refugee backgrounds. So we should look at the diversity of these organizations as well, because it's really important for your organization to also have this expertise in your own house. So you should definitely look, while you have this staff and this team, that, you know, should also be included with people with a refugee background, or who is a newcomer himself or herself. And I believe that there should be a bigger and more organized advisory board of newcomers or refugee-led organization on the national, but definitely also on the local level, and also on the European level, actually. Yeah. So this was the presentation, actually, and just telling you a little bit about what I've been facing, but definitely also sharing a little bit perspective of this civic integration law. You know, what's going well, but there was maybe more room to improve. And I was talking a lot. This is for me always, webinar is nice, but it's always nice, you know, if you can have more interaction, of course. So please, we can just close this part. And I was just wondering if anyone had questions or comments on everything that we just discussed.
Again, as usual, thank you. Feel free to drop questions in the chat or just unmute yourself and speak if you want to.
Yeah, just a quick question. Is there somewhere where immigrants can get information regarding integration, or in Balkan, for instance, where you can get like the guide to what you need to do when you're in the Netherlands, for instance, how to integrate in the Netherlands?
Yeah, good question. I think it when they arrived at the COA, so at the AZC, the Asylum Seeker Centers, they do provide you some information about, you know, what is expected from you, etc., and especially if you receive the status. But then, you know, the camps is a temporary thing. So then when you go to your municipality, the municipality often also provides you with a lot of information. But what's complicated sometimes is that this is really decentralized. So every municipality can do it a little bit on their own way. But mostly you will have like someone who will guide you from the municipality, from the gemeente, and you will have a contact person who will guide you in this first period.
Okay, so if, for instance, maybe that process was skipped for some reason, it's always possible to go back to the municipality to inquire about, you know.
Yeah. Definitely, yeah.
Okay, inquiries.
Yeah, this is, and yeah, that's why I think it's a really good thing that the responsibility of the civic integration law is back at the municipality, where it was first, it was the refugees' own responsibility. That's why they had to take a loan and, you know, choose a school themselves. And now it's at least back to the municipality. So that means you will also have someone who can guide you also in this process.
Okay, thank you. The second question which just came to my mind now is, you mentioned in your presentation that it's important to include people who are affected by the issue in making the policies. How do you think it's possible to do that?
Well, I think it's important to, so for instance, the municipality of Amsterdam, they have a board of newcomers, an advisory board. So that means that decision-making, you know, civil servants who work at the municipality on these issues, they ask them for advice before implementing or maybe writing new policies. So one thing is that a municipality should facilitate this. Another thing is like, you know, working with organizations like Cultuur in Harmonie, with people like Jordi, with others, to see how you know, they can be more involved in decision making. It's for me, it's always funny, like, because if you're an organization and you want to, let's say, build a new room within your organization, you will call an expert to see, you know, maybe an architect to see, okay, so how can we do it and in what way we should do it, etc., etc. And I believe that actually it's kind of the same, you know, like also with these kind of policies, we should just also have an expert coming in and looking with you. Well, I don't know if this will fit. I don't know if that will fit, but maybe you can write it in this way so that it can really fit the needs of newcomers. And I think it's a shift that we should keep on promoting and keep on telling. And Jordi, please add to this, to whatever I'm saying, because I know that Jordi, for instance, has been working also within a municipality to also fulfill this role.
I have a question, like a follow-up question as well to that. Are these processes done then in English, or are they still in Dutch? Like, even if they seek advice from newcomers, will that still be in Dutch, or?
Sometimes it's in Dutch, sometimes they have it with a translator, sometimes it's in English. So I think the advisory board of the municipality in Amsterdam, might be in English, but maybe now, so it's been there for a few years, maybe a lot of newcomers, their Dutch is also sufficient enough to have this conversation, but they can also fall back in English. Yeah. Especially cities like Amsterdam, Rotterdam, the bigger cities, it's okay to have English as a how do you say it, where you can fall back onto. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Because that was, a question I had in mind the whole time.
Yeah.
I was like, it's a good idea, yes, but sometimes language-wise,
Definitely
problems.
Yeah, no, definitely. And this is a thing. This is also a thing for organizations. They're like, but we have a language barrier, et cetera, et cetera. And then I'm like, well, we have to work around it, we should see if someone is there who can maybe translate or whatsoever, it's just, if we make things and we don't, how do you say it? If we don't, it's like customer service, right?
It's about the effort.
Yeah, it's a customer service. If there's a new product on the market, they want to see if this product is good enough to and in a way we should maybe also think that with policies that concerns these groups, maybe to see like, okay, if this is what we are doing, the things that we write down, is it beneficiary for the newcomers?
I have also another question actually, but I'll first look around if anyone else has a question.
I have a question.
Okay, good. Go first.
It's also about language. When it comes to, for example, when you go to the municipality for helping them take the steps, is there also a translator or is it also in English? Because maybe in the beginning, especially, they don't understand or they have a language barrier. So is this somebody, the person that is guiding them, also trying to do it in the language which they can understand?
Yeah, good question. So sometimes you have municipalities that order like a translator through the phone, so that it can be in your language, because not every refugee speaks English. So sometimes they do that. Most of the time, because it costs a lot of money for organization and municipalities. So a lot of times they ask you if you can bring someone who can translate for you. But if this is definitely not an option, a lot of municipalities, especially the big ones, will call a translator, and then there will be a translator on the line. Yeah, but sometimes it's really difficult because not every municipality or organization have a budget to also a call for this translator line. But especially in the beginning, I think it's really important that things are also being explained in own language. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? Also, if you don't feel comfortable speaking, you can always refer back to the chat. Yeah, my question was, I forgot, I think. I guess I think I forgot, so it wasn't that important, I think.
No worries. You can always ask me another time, Colleen.
Yeah, exactly. I have your contact as well. Well, then,
okay.
I think that's it. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Yes.
It was very interesting, and I think it gave us all a lot of insight. And yeah, thanks so much.
Okay. Thank you, all of everyone as well. And I think I can just add, go with Jordi's last words. So I wish everyone a lot of success and, everything good for the future. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye. Bye.
Nice evening.
Just one last point before we're leaving. Thanks everybody for joining, and thank you all for the great presentations. I'll just leave some closing remarks for Jordani. She's a member of our team and she just wants to say thanks again and address a few comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. It is a pleasure to close this webinar. On behalf of the board members of the Center for African Justice, Peace and Human Rights, I would like to extend my appreciation and gratitude to all 4 speakers for their contribution by giving workshops, sharing their expertise on this important topic, and for providing a very interactive method to reflect and understand the impact of stumbling blocks towards cultural integration into a new country. Also, I would like to give a massive thank you to the Women Empowerment team at the Center for African Justice, Peace and Human Rights, who for months worked very hard on this event and made it possible. Thank to the other teams of the organization for the collaboration and support. Lastly, I would like to also thank the participants from all over the world for joining us today. Before we leave this webinar, I would like to invite everyone to join our future webinars, which will be about career mentorship. Please check our website and social media platform for more information, as the exact date on this webinar has not yet been determined. Once again, many thanks to everyone who took part in this very engaging and informative discussion. And I wish you a wonderful rest of the day, and goodbye to everyone.
Thank you all. If there's anything else, send us an email, please. Bye. I also have to leave.